Welcome back to Yang Daily. I'll be your host, Alex Cheney, bringing you all the Yang news you need to live your life right. Fortunately, there wasn't much news the past couple of days, so we can get caught up on some of what the Maricopa audit displaced last episode, and I think you're really gonna like it. Quick shout out to our Tier 3 patrons, Shay Meehan and Nathan Stankowski, as well as all our other patrons. You keep us all informed and engaged. If any of you out there want to join these advocates of humanity first and independent journalism, head on over to patreon.com/YangDaily. It would only take a couple of bucks a month from each listener to keep this podcast and community going and growing into the future. Now on to the news. The expanded child tax credit checks have finally arrived. Millions of parents around the U.S. have now had their first taste of the joys of guaranteed income. Social media had plenty of testimonials on display, people expressing their relief, elation, and opportunity that comes with even a small bit of economic security. This is our doing, gang. Work requirements were all the rage not long ago. Scott Santens and others spent years spreading the word on UBI. It didn't seem like much progress was being made, but it eventually caught the eye of a presidential candidate. That candidate lost his race, but in the process convinced a lot of Americans that unconditional cash is the way forward. Democrats gained a majority in the Senate by the slimmest of margins with our help. All of that and some lobbying was barely enough to get Congress to pass first one, then another stimulus check, and strip most of the conditions off the child tax credit. At every step, it seemed like we were losing to some degree. We were never achieving everything we wanted. Some said the gains were too small, that it would be better not to move at all, and yet every small victory, every small step enabled the next one. Those steps got us to America's first national guaranteed income, and that will be the next step toward the full UBI that we need. So the next time you're feeling pessimistic about the rate of political progress, remember this. Progress isn't easy, it isn't simple, but it gets the job done. And there's still a job to do with the CTC because it's not yet permanent. If you want that security for families to last, if you want to take that next step toward UBI, text CTC to 747464 to call your senators and make clear how you expect them to vote on this. They are arguing right now over the next infrastructure package, which this is currently included in. And sign the petition linked below if you haven't already. A Washington Post article made some points in favor of Republican support for a permanent child allowance. Supporting families is a core rallying cry for conservatives. The child tax credit benefit amount was expanded under both Bush and Trump. Moreover, it notes that the right has been calling for school vouchers for decades, that being the government providing money to families for them to spend on education at an institution of their choosing. For those who want it, the child allowance perfectly fits that role, and Romney's version of it would be budget neutral. Far better than neutral, in fact, as we know that investments in kids generate roughly $7 for every one invested, via improved health and access to opportunities, lowering costs like healthcare and crime, while raising revenue like taxable income. The GOP should be pushing for this, and their voters should be pushing them. Families and the economy prosper when people have the resources they need to get quality education and jobs. Kids deserve a healthy childhood. Let's make it happen. The American Sustainable Business Council, an alliance of 250,000 businesses, are now calling on the Senate to create a filibuster exemption for voting rights bills, or otherwise reform the filibuster to allow H.R. 1 and the John Lewis Voting Rights Act to pass. They say they support this because the filibuster has become an obstacle to government performing its obligations, which is just the simple truth. The CTC isn't the only big news for UBI today. By an incredibly bipartisan vote of 36-0 in the Senate and 64-0 in the Assembly, California's state Congress has officially approved the first state-funded guaranteed income plan in the U.S. since Alaska's oil dividend. $35 million of the state's $76 billion budget surplus will go to monthly cash payments for qualifying pregnant mothers and youths leaving foster care, with no restriction on how they spend it. Local governments and organizations will apply for the money, set the size of the monthly benefits, and run the programs. The State Department of Social Services will decide who gets funding. More of this, please. Put the rest of that ridiculous surplus all into a full UBI. Californians, tell your state representatives this is what you want. And there's more. Governor Newsom also just signed into law the $600 stimulus checks for Californians earning between 30 and 75 grand a year and $500 for adult dependents. Expect that to roll out in September, and it will likewise have no spending or employment conditions. Ditch the means testing and let's go. So to sum it up, the second state-funded guaranteed income in the nation, statewide stimulus checks, and the first payments from the Near UBI for Kids, all within a few days of each other. The future of UBI is looking pretty bright, gang. Great work, and keep that ball rolling. And that'll do it for today's Yang Daily. Bookmark and share the CTC checks, Scott's progress thread, the CTC petition, the conservative argument for it, the 250,000 business endorsement for filibuster reform, and the California foster guaranteed income and stimulus checks. Flood Congress with calls, tweets, faxes, and letters using the ResistBot or Income Movement easy contacts below. If you need help, consult Humanity Forward, the Income Movement Aid Database, the Mission Asset Fund, or United Way, and don't forget to Yang Daily.